We're here. We're here. That sounded great. Over here. Over here. Live for channel members, that's what we are. This is 20 Minutes of Coffee. It's a man in his bathrobe and his beanie, which you can get that beanie. Yes, you can. Head to the Stream Elements store. The link is in the YouTube description. Get this beanie. Get a lot of Team Zuck merchandise. Get enough so I can cash out and buy lunch. Hey, that's the challenge. We're back. Yeah, right. Ken's here. No, David McKay's here saying, yeah, right, Ken. Why? Yeah, Ken is here. Michael McCarsel's here. We call him Detective McCarsel. Says, we're back. No coffee, just an energy drink and practice exam from me. You go get it, Michael. I respect so many people. I respect people like David McKay, who I consider a very insightful young gentleman from a foreign country. I like a lot of things David McKay posts on Twitter. I'll say that. And I look at people like Detective McCarsel, who are pursuing a big, giant goal and putting a lot, rolling up their sleeves and doing it every day, whether they want to or not. I've worked hard my entire life and career. I also have been extremely lazy. And I've also not done what Detective McCarsel's doing right now. Putting your back into something there. Good to be back here. 20 Minutes of Coffee is a show, a morning show, a chit-chat show. It's me in my backup studio. This is the backup studio. That's the main studio over there. And it's me looking at the world, talking about it, hanging out with my channel members. You can become a channel member and get to hang out here live. I imagine it was going to be, for the live audience today, it was going to be a little less attended because I inadvertently took 3 weeks off from this show. 4 weeks? Oh, this has been a month. Oh, man. That's why you don't succeed on YouTube, Ken. Traveled to Boston. Thought about doing a 20 Minutes of Coffee from the hotel room. But here's the thing. You ever do that thing where you're like, man, I get to that hotel room and we're going to, yeah, absolutely, man. I'm going to do work. I'm going to hit the gym. And you get there and you're like, you sleep in and you're like, life's fine. We're good. I did hit the gym. I got back to the gym. Mark Ellis is so good at hitting the gym on the road and keeping his fitness goals in mind, where I'm like, let's have 2 Boston cream donuts, which I did have, but I did get back to the gym. I haven't been able to do that for a while. The back and everything got in okay, survived, and I've stayed in the gym, stayed working, doing my walks and everything lately. So I'm going to get back into some sort of shape. I'm confident about that. But outside of that, you got stand-up shows. But I had a couple days in Boston where it was like, I got 2 full days of nothing. I should do something. We should live stream, Mark. We should set up a laptop and just live stream. I think 5-6 years ago, I would have gladly done that. 7 years ago, I would have brought up Periscope, and I just would have been Periscoping all night. I kind of miss Periscope. But YouTube, Instagram Live, you can get that, scratch that itch. But then, you get there and you sleep in, you're like, I don't want to do anything. So, miss that. That's why we did new 20 Minutes of Coffee. Then the last couple weeks, I have wanted to do this show. But then what has happened is I literally had vet appointments. Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best days for me to do the show. Vet appointments. Had to get up early. Had to take a friend to the airport. Had to do all these things that I just couldn't do it. But don't worry, friends. We're back. And we're taking a look at the news of the world. And there's one specific thing I do want to talk about. But we are looking at some of the news. We got Trump is close to jail time if he keeps violating the gag orders. It's not going to happen. I don't think he's ever going to spend 1 second in a jail cell, unfortunately. But I love hearing those headlines. I've been following this trial with one eye, and not both eyes on this trial. I'll say this. That's all. But it's nothing. There's nothing shocking or surprising from this trial. He's bad. The National Enquirer is bad. None of this is good. We'll see what happens. Dave McKay says, when I was in London for Celebration, I was like, I should go out. But then I stayed and watched Police Academy 1 and 2 on TV instead. Yeah. Michael McCarcel says, hey, hell yeah, man. You'll get back at it. I don't have nearly the severe injury you have, but every few months I'll wake up and my back will just say, no, can't lift or rock climb for several days. Ooh, you rock climb? Detective McCarcel rock climbs. That's That's impressive. I couldn't do that. Not only do I not have probably the proper, amount of upper body strength, it's hard to rock climb while you're crying. It's hard to rock climb while your hands are sweaty with nerves because you're going to fall the 3 feet to the ground that you've made it. You've made it 3 feet, and that's going to be it. Michael McCarcel is saying something that I'm thinking too sometimes. I think a lot. He says, I have zero confidence at this point that the Orange Fear will, I'm adding the fear part, I shall say, will suffer any sort of consequences. Yes, that is kind of where I'm at. I want him to suffer consequences. I want bad things to happen to him. Not physically. I'm not rooting for anyone's death. I'm just saying legally. He's just got to be voted out of existence. That's what it comes down to. He's got to be voted out of existence. And it's tough. It's going to be tough. I am looking at the news of these college protests, which we talked about anytime on Friday, last Friday. I support protests. I support protests even if I don't fully agree with them. This is not necessarily one of those cases. I think you need to look at the points being raised. I also think this is just part of the circle. It's part of the cycle. And we here, especially in America, have a tendency to overreact to protests. We have a tendency to pick them apart because there are college students protesting right now who are saying some really bad things, who are saying some anti-Semitic things. There are videos that exist of that kind of thing, but it's not everyone. And it's easy to point to that and be like, see, and then it's easy to go the other way in that direction. It's always that case. I do what the French do. It's Tuesday. We're protesting. The cops are going to fight us. They're going to arrest us. We're going to burn things down. We'll see you next month. And that's not to belittle the issues. What's going on in Gaza, what might be going on very soon in Rafah, all that stuff. It should be paid attention to. And you should listen to the youth, man. I saw a meme of showed Kent State or showed Vietnam protests, and it was like, history has not been kind to those who are not on the side of the youth protesting on colleges. I don't think it's true. But again, and that's the thing is I don't have to worry about, I don't personally worry about going through every protester and every college student there, because I'm sure there's some doing it for the gram. I'm sure there's some doing it to be destructive. I'm sure there's some doing it because they are anti-Semitic. I'm sure there's some doing it because blah, 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 blah. I don't need to go and look at every person and ask every person. The police, a lot of the people get upset, understandably, rightfully so, I think. Police don the riot gear, crowd control gear, which, by the way, most of that stuff is just in the back of their car. The quote-unquote riot cops don't really exist. They're just officers that's the stuff they have in their car. They put it on, they go in. Why? Because a lot of times they get hit with bricks. They get hit with rocks. They get hit with other sort of projectiles. That's why that stuff exists. But it looks intimidating. It looks, like some sort of fascist wing of the fascist party. I totally get all of that stuff. A lot of the cops just do it. I said this on any time. It's just a lot of the cops go out there because it's their job. It's overtime and it's fun. Violence is fun, and that's, I'm not saying that in an excuse or that it's right. So a lot of people, when you see it up and up, how could they do? It's fun to them. It's fun. I've been there. I've arrested people in violent manners in the past because it was fun. I'm not that person anymore. I wouldn't do it. So it's all part of this cycle. You should just pay attention to what's going on and cut through all these headlines, cut through all the quote tweets, and cut through people, but also listen to people. Again, I have a lot of friends who are very left leaning, and who are very much against these protests, and they're citing a lot of pockets of it that are rather anti-Semitic, and these are Jewish friends of mine, and I'm listening to them too, but it doesn't throw out to me the entire issue. It doesn't throw out the entire issue. That's what I think. Michael McCarcel has some thoughts here, hanging out with me. Thank you, David and Michael, being live with me today, and others. I'm so torn when my partner shows me TikToks of the protesters. Like, is someone making money off this video? The protests need to happen to be seen, but someone just recording for views. And these are all fair questions, right? That's what I say. It's like having a Porsche and then you get a little nick on the door and you just throw the Porsche away. That's what I think when someone looks at these protests and says, hey, here's video of one person saying something that's anti-Semitic and anti-Israel in a tremendously problematic, troubling way. There's one person on video saying it, so therefore the rest of the protest is ruined and that their issue shouldn't be taken care of, And again, a lot of this is on private property. That brings up other issues too. And I don't mean this. I said this on Any Time, and I hope it didn't come off too harsh. It's a little harsh, but like when you go out to protest these things and you're this isn't a one day thing. You got encampments. You're taking over buildings. What do you expect going to happen? This is kind of the result you should be expecting. And I'm not saying it's the result you want to get pepper sprayed or thrown down or beat, but this is the game you're playing. So it's not that I don't feel bad for them. And not that I don't see police going to extreme measures to arrest female teachers and throw them to the ground. It's just like, this is what's going on. Anyways, let's go into something fun, like Jerry Seinfeld. Matthew Stokes says the media is selective in how they cover protests. TikToks can help to provide a perspective news might be showing you. Yeah, and I agree with that too. That's one of the things too with social media in general. I think Matthew's really right there of things over the years. There's a lot of bad with social media. But it's situations like this that word can get out. Perspectives can be shared. I think that's always going to be tremendously valuable. Michael Carlson says plenty of footage of excessive force from cops who just want to hurt people. Yeah, I cannot stress enough. And again, I'm not saying this is it being right, and I'm not saying it as someone who's proud of all the things he's been a part of in the past in a public safety setting. Violence is fun, and that's the scary reality. So a lot of times it's like, cool, we get to go toss some people around because they're sitting in on private property. What are they protesting? I don't know. I don't care. Let's go throw them around. It's just part of the situation too. All right. Laserbolt's here. Laserbolt video is here. Now 20 minutes of coffee is back on. Laserbolt is here. Before we get to Jerry Seinfeld, should I do some commercials? I should do some commercials. As you saw at the top of the show, I want to remind folks that on my Patreon page and on the Patreon shop is the first Young Guns movie commentary. I did this. It's just me, myself. One day, maybe will I've guessed? Sure, absolutely. But this is me sitting down with some drinks, some whiskey, and watching one of my favorite movies and just having fun watching. I hadn't seen it in a while. I'm going to do Young Guns 2 after this. So if you're a Patreon supporter at any level, you have the audio or video versions. And if you don't want to support or can't support a Patreon on a monthly level, I totally get that. Head on to the Patreon shop, and I'm selling them over there too. So that is there. And also, don't forget, we have a new ASMR video up, drafting football cards. A listener, a viewer, send in some football cards. So we opened them up, and I drafted them. It was a lot of fun. And I'm slowly building that channel. Kingsport Callow's here. Now the morning's really begun. I'm slowly building that channel, man. If I hit 1,000 subs, it'll be one of the greatest achievements of my life because it's just been a slow climb. But it's been a climb, and it's been a lot of fun over there. Michael McCarsell says, the commentary was actually my first experience with the movie. Thank you for watching it, Michael McCarsell. You've given me hope because I got to tell you, I was losing a little hope that not even my Patreon supporters weren't taking in the videos. I understood I'm maybe not going to sell some copies, but I haven't heard from it, so I'm glad. I'm going to keep going just because of you. Also, we're back Thursday night, 5 p.m. Pacific for questions and calls live. That's a horrible title for the episode, but I'm trying to figure out the best way to title these episodes and get some segments going in them where I know what I'm talking about, as well as the random calls and all that stuff there. Anyways, done with the commercial break. I want to talk about this. I'm going to start with here. And those in the, if you're watching along live, jump in here, but also give me a second. Give me a second, okay? Give me a second. God damn it. God damn. All right. I am a fan of Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld, the TV show, is one of my favorite shows of all time. I am a fan of Jerry as a stand-up comic. And I'm going to put a pin in that and I'm going to come back to that. Because some people are upset at me with this. I also love what he has to say about comedy most of the time. But Jerry has always been this kind of guy. Jerry has always been this kind of person, and Jerry's been doubling down. I have been waiting. For Jerry to have this complete kind of headline-grabbing interview where people finally just go, enough with this guy. And this seems to be it. But Jerry doesn't care. Jerry could walk into this room right now. He could park his Porsche in the red zone out in front of my house, get a ticket, and walk in. He wouldn't care what I'm saying. He's insulated by money, but I think even before money, I think this was who Jerry was. Jerry Seinfeld says TV comedy has been killed by the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. I wanted to go into this, and I wanted to actually read as much as I could. So there's a full interview that is here. There's a full interview here in the New Yorker. Let's just go with some of the big quotes here. Jerry Seinfeld said in an interview with the New Yorker while touting his feature directorial effort on Frosted. And that word effort that's a heavy word. That word's doing a lot of lifting right there, I think. He said that PC crap and extreme left making television comedy go extinct. Seinfeld is a sitcom icon thanks to his eponymous, why can't I speak today? ABC sitcom that ran between 1989 and 1998. But he says viewers no longer flock to their television sets in order to get their comedy fixed like they did for decades. That's true. That is true. We've talked about a lot. How we get to things, how we all watch things has changed. Clearly. Doesn't take a genius, of which clearly I am. I can't even say half the words I'm reading today. Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. Well, that's not true, but it's half true. People need comedy, man. Yes. Mark Ellis once said a great quote to me, all the job changes that go on our industry, me losing my gigs over the last couple of years. Mark has got some good gigs, but his gigs can change. There's always going to be a brick wall and a microphone. Comedy is always needed. So that part of it is true. But the idea that Jerry says they don't get it, not true. It used to be, we'd go home at the end of the day. Most people would go on. Oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. Oh, All in the Family is on. You just expect it. There'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the rest of the extreme left and PC crap. People worrying so much about offending people. So let's break that down. It's not the result of the extreme left. It's not the result of PC crap. People are correctly pointing out that Curb Your Enthusiasm just wrapped up and existed. That Veep, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, existed. Veep's one of my all-time favorite shows. Veep, even when it was on its run, when it ended a couple years ago, I was surprised they were, quote, getting away with some of it because I'm dying laughing at some things where I'm like, I don't know if we do that anymore, but it's hilarious. And people did not come after the show because they knew what the show was trying to do. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia remains one of my all-time favorite shows. We'll come back to them in a second because Jerry inadvertently kind of stumbles onto stuff they've done. In the history of television, specifically television, the shows that have been ended, railroaded out of the lineup, and just sometimes just shut down and shut up is not because of extreme left. Not because of PC crap. It is the other way. It is the religious right. Read the book Outrageous by Cliff Nesterhoff. It tracks this all. And often this comes from groups like the John Birch Society, the Moral Majority, Heritage Foundation. You have two nutballs from the Heritage Foundation online. There's a clip going around of them trying to ban porn. That's the Heritage Foundation. Dennis Prager comes from the Heritage Foundation. Look that up. It's culture warriors trying to control us through this moral panic bullshit. was just reading about Ed Asner, the star of the star of the TV show Lou Grant. It ran for 5 seasons up to 1982. It was absolutely run off television because Lou Grant, the performer, Ed Asner, was very outspoken against Reagan, very outspoken against what Reagan was doing and the American foreign policies, particularly what was going on in El Salvador. That got him shut down. Every one of these shows that Jerry's talking about, and this is where I get, a little bit of the media literacy conversation comes up, which could be a double-edged sword. Some people I think some people die on the media literacy sword in a self-righteous way, and others just don't understand it. It's just like a lot of things in life. It's nuanced and balanced. Cheers is a show that I think was purely, I'm a big fan of Cheers. It's great. It's solid. I don't think it deals with a ton of big issues. It's just a show set in the 80s into the early 90s, and it is what it is, but it's a great show, and it has great character work. I'm not saying Cheers didn't have themes or didn't have issues. I don't remember every episode off the top of my head. Cheers is great comedy. But it's so funny that Jerry cites MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, All in the Family, and says there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. As if to suggest that every one of those shows, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, throw in Soap, throw in Maude, All in the Family, are not shows dripping with political and social commentary from what I would call the left. And that's a weird, I don't want to get into those definitions. Jerry missed the point here of those shows then. They're not just funny stuff. All in the Family was a watershed moment in social commentary disguised as humor. It's not even satire. A little bit of satire. And the folks that say, well, you couldn't make All in the Family today. Yeah, you could, and it does kind of exist, and it can be there, and that's how to use comedy. Jerry is one of those comics who feels his comedy is apolitical, but it is political by the fact that it is apolitical. And it's okay with that. I'm a Steve Martin fan. I'm a giant Steve Martin fan. Steve Martin's not said any of this shit. Steve Martin has not become this guy. Jerry has become this guy. Jerry's been, college campuses are not where I want to go. Some of what he's saying is right, and I don't want people to lose that fact. But what he's saying here is wrong. Mary Tyler Moore dealt with a lot of feminist issues. Women in the workplace. That was shockingly, you overlook that in the 70s. That was what they were dealing with here. MASH. Laserbolt said, MASH was the career. MASH was very funny. I grew up laughing at MASH. I was 6, 7 years old. My parents are watching MASH. I'm not getting the political commentary on it, but it's there. And Alan Alda, in fact, the show, and Laserbolt, you're a little older than me, Laserbolt. You might remember. The show started to become almost considered too preachy, right? Change. And Alan Alda really, as he got more power in the show, was directing episodes. I remember the episode in which Alan Alda's Hawkeye Pierce character crashes or is attacked, and he's going to die, but he stays alive by being taken in by a North Korean family. And it's this heavy episode, and he's got to stay awake or he dies. And this North Korean family, the enemy, keeps him alive. That show is dripping in commentary. It's not. So what Jerry's thinking is what a lot of comics I know think, and a lot of people I know, that comedy's just comedy. And yeah, Cheers, kind of just comedy. I'm starting to go down the Steve Martin route. Steve Martin has said several times, it's in that doc, Steve, 2 parts on Apple. I highly recommend you watch it. Steve Martin has said, hey, everyone else around me was doing Nixon, doing Watergate, heavy politics. It was a gritty, dark time. I put an arrow through my head because I think people needed that. There is value in that. What Jerry's saying is true. People need comedy. They want comedy. Not every joke I say has to have a message in it. And trust me, not every joke I say has a message in it. But to cite these examples, to cite All in the Family as just some, quote, funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight, is to completely whiff on what that show is doing and completely whiff on the power and importance of comedy. Soap, which came out in 77 range, featured Billy Crystal, a straight white male, playing a gay man, which was the sign of the times, and style at the times, I should say, was absolutely ripped and destroyed, and ABC eventually kind of gave up on it because the sponsors, the Moral Majority, which is a group, the Heritage Foundation, a group, the John Birch Society, a group, pastors, religious organizations. They're showing gay people on TV. Tear it down. Soap was written and showrun. They didn't use that term back then. Showrun by the woman behind the TV show Maude, or who wrote the famous episode of Maude, in which B. Arthur's character gets an abortion or thinks about getting an abortion. That whole episode. That all got shut down. Three's Company. And Three's Company isn't perfect. It isn't pitch perfect, man. It isn't. It doesn't age well in some respects. But Three's Company at least said the word gay on TV, right? At least had this thing out there. At least try to play with it. And they tried to shut it down. That has not come from the left, Jerry. And the only other times in history in which things have been shut down, I don't know, it's things like blackface. Jerry strikes me as the kind of guy that would probably think, you should still let's do Amos and Andy, the reboot. Seinfeld noted that comedy fans are now going to see stand-up comics because we're not policed by anyone. The audience polices us. We know when we're off track. We know instantly, and we adjust to it instantly. But when you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke. Well, that's the end of your comedy. This is what's. I'm glad I read this. Sorry, I'm just. Stuff drives me crazy. Jerry's right. Comedy, stand-up comedy, is on a absolute boom right now. The history books will record these last 5 years and maybe 5 more years as a boom in stand-up comedy, not unlike the late 80s, but completely different than the late 80s. TikTok is because of that. Social media. The Comedy Store. When I started going to the Comedy Store in the mid-2000s, I could throw a bowling ball down the aisles and maybe hit comics, but you'd have a hard time hitting people. They did well. They sold out shows sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. I was in front of some packed houses in the Belly Room. But on a Tuesday night, death. And the vibe was death. You go to the Comedy Store on a Friday night, especially who depending on who's on that marquee, whether I like them or not, lines out the door, lines down the street. I always say the Comedy Store is like my favorite bar because it is. It's insanely popular and insanely crowded. Go over to the Improv on Melrose. It's insanely popular, insanely crowded. Go to the Laugh Factory down the street from the Comedy Store. Lines around the corner. Comedy is in a boom right now, and it is because of what Jerry's saying. People are seeing it because they're not policed anymore, and there's this idea that anything can happen because a lot of people are just believing this bullshit. But the second part of Jerry's right about everything in this quote. He's just got it wrong. And Jerry admits here that the audience polices you. So what Jerry's saying is he acknowledges that you can say things that are wrong or you can go too far and you'll know instantly. So it upsets me. It upsets me that Jerry can't even he can't grasp. Even he's like, hey, some things are wrong, but we know. All right, so you agree that there's some things that are wrong. Phil Hendry tweeted something out today. Big fan of Phil Hendry, radio legend. He's like, all right, Jerry, say it. Drop N-bombs. Drop all the... Do it. Do it. Jerry knows that's not the point. But then he says this, it's all true. We know instantly, we just do it instantly. But when you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke. That's the end of comedy. That is true. And that is more the problem. And that has nothing, that is not everything to do with anything left, woke, PC. That has to do with corporations. That has to do with stuff George Lucas was talking about in the 70s. And George Lucas was ahead of, you listen to interviews from Empire Dreams and everything. He's just like, look, the studios got sold by people who knew how to make movies, that got into it because it's what they wanted to do. It was their art. They just were studio heads, and they had studios. Not they were perfect, but they did that. Then they got sold to corporations, and they became properties, entities. And that was the 60s, 70s. And it's only gotten worse. What Jerry is talking about is true, and it's frustrating. And it's why stand-up comedy is still one of my favorite art forms, and it's the art form that is in just absolute demand right now. There is no committee. But that has more to do with capitalism. That has more to do with the non-artistic people being in positions of power who do not understand anything related to humor. Small example for me. We, one of my early days at Collider, wrote a great sketch I've hinted at here before. It was a parody of The Bachelor. This was after season 1 with Barb. And we had Jeremy Johns as The Bachelor. Grace was going to play Barb. It was going to be called The Barbchular. Mark Riley wrote this amazing fucking script. Amazing script. And we were going to shoot this. We had the location. We were going to, what was one of our Thad's house at the time. I'll just say it. I'll say all these names. It was... would it have gone viral? Would have gone? No, I don't know, but it would have been fucking great. And it would have been so timely. This was during season 1 of Stranger Things. With Barb and all that stuff. And it was great. It got passed around to all the higher-ups. Every one of the goddamn higher-ups, even ones who were back in New York, picked it apart. I don't get this. What's that mean? What's that joke mean? I don't know. This doesn't seem funny to us. That's the stuff Jerry's talking about. But no one said in those meetings, oh, we can't say this and offend people. Oh, we can't do this. They just said, I don't find it funny. This isn't going to make us money. We can't take this creative risk. That's the problem. What Jerry's talking about is a different issue. It's capitalism disguised as art. I'm sure his movie Unfrosted went through this process. And I'm sure when his movie is panned because it does not look good, he'll go back and blame this, but he'll blame, I couldn't offend people. He says this. This is the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing. We did an episode of Seinfeld in the 90s where Kramer decides to start a business of having homeless people pull rickshaws because, as he says, they're outside anyway. I think that's funny, by the way. Come after me. I think that's funny. He continued, do you think I could get that episode on air today? We would write a different joke with Kramer and the rickshaw today. We wouldn't do that joke. We come up with another joke. They move the gates like in the slalom. Good Olympic reference. Cultural. The gates are moving. Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make that gate. Kingsport Cow says, does anyone remember the Bee Movie? No. First of all, he basically just pitched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode with Rickety Cricket, one of the greatest characters of all time, David Hornsby. Well, I used to know back in the day. So, not well. I was around him in a lot of projects. He was great. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia does this shit. Jerry. But then Jerry says something that I'm like, I don't understand what he's coming back because he's right. We would write a different joke with Kramer and the rickshaw today. We wouldn't do that joke. We'd come up with another joke. They move the gates like in slalom. Culture, the gates are moving. Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make the gate. This is what I don't understand. If you were to take this quote out of context and say this was the headline, I'd say Jerry's getting it. This is what we should do. When I say I think that's funny that Kramer's got a rickshaw business that he's aiming towards the homeless or the residentially challenged, and they're outside because they're outside anyways, I think that's funny. But how you deliver that is going to be the key. You do have to do what Jerry's saying. I have to do that. I have bits I don't do anymore. I have bits I've changed. I have one bit that I used to say to make fun of myself for being a nerd that is now a social commentary joke. Because it does move. It's always going to move. Otherwise, every one of us performers would be on stage doing blackface because that was the style of the times in 1870, 1880. And if things didn't move, that's where we'd be. We need it to move. So Jerry's not wrong. He's not wrong here. But why is he not getting it? Why is this not seen as something that we all have to do? Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make that gate. Yeah. That's how it's supposed to be. And then you find the ways to make it work. So if you want to write a joke or want to have an episode in which your wacky, weird neighbor comes up with this business, playing, then it becomes an issue. Your theme, your social issue commentary might be about the homeless problem. It might be about capitalism destroying society in a lot of ways. But how can we make it work better? You got to find a way. Veep found a way. Veep says words. Veep says words that we just have a list. I don't know if we touch those anymore. They hit it like a hammer every time, and it worked. Veep's one of the all-time best shows because they knew the gates were moving and they found the way to get them. And the gates do move. 30 Rock is an amazing show. 30 Rock is an amazing show, but the cultural gates have moved a bit. They moved enough where people look at 30 Rock a little differently. I still think the show is funny. I still think the show is great value, but the gates moved a little bit. It can't continue to move. Tina Fey can move. The writers of that show can move. The show can't move. It's locked in time. Seinfeld is locked in time. Pleasurable 20 minutes of coffee, please, and make it a double. I'm still going. Oh, God. I'm upset because I'm a fan of this man, but I've watched him do this. And then here's, I wanted to address this here right now, too. Let me finish this article. Seinfeld went on to stress that it's the stand-ups who really have the freedom to cross the line when it comes to comedy nowadays, further suggesting that television networks are no longer interested in doing anything that will ruffle feathers and offend the PC crowd. Such bullshit. Because Jerry just mentioned above that you can cross the line. But here's the thing, too. People, the audiences, comics, some very great comics, very talented comics, they think the goal is to cross the line. But they never ask themselves why they cross the line. What's the point of that? I know Anthony Jeselnik just kind of said this recently, and I think he was backhandedly referring to the Matt Rife stuff of you can say horrible things, it just has to be funny, and that seems like it's simplistic. But that is true. I just saw someone in chat here mention Shane Gillis. I don't love a lot of what Shane Gillis tries to accomplish, but the fucker's funny. He is. And he's going to do well. He's going to continue to do well. The stuff, why he got fired from Saturday Night Live, I'm very glad he did. Very glad he did, because that was an example of things that you do. This idea that stand-up comedian's job is to offend, to push the boundaries. That's not what it's about, man. It's about sharing your story and sharing your perspective, connecting with an audience and trying to see, are we all in this together? I've seen it not work, man. I saw a comic do 10 minutes in front of a pretty good-sized house at Flappers one night. He started the show. He was an asshole anyways. I got to go. Let me go first. He was supposed to go last. He went first. He did 10 horrible minutes that were misogynistic and outdated. And, hey, guys like to fuck and girls like to... He just did everything wrong. And the crowd reacted. Meaning they weren't just silent. They weren't heckling him. They just were like, get the hell off the stage. Because that's a comic who thinks my job up here is to be the class clown, to be the guy who pushes the boundaries. Oh, you offended. That's not comedy. So Jerry's wrong here. Comics don't have quote, really have the freedom to cross the line. They really have the freedom to explore ideas in a way other art forms don't, other than maybe music. Gary Muldeer never got canceled. Thank you, Laserbolt. Now, I want to say this, though. All this to say in this rant. This is the stuff that can drive me crazy, too. I've seen a lot of folks tweeting and threading and posting and whatever this bullshit of, well, Jerry wasn't really funny anyways. I never found Jerry funny. Jerry was the wink link on Seinfeld anyways. It was really Larry David. It was those stuff. Stop that. You could not find Jerry funny. Jerry maybe wasn't your favorite comic or is never going to be your favorite comic, or maybe you didn't like Seinfeld. Maybe you like Friends. Maybe you're so young you don't like Friends or Seinfeld because you look at them differently. They're from a different era. That all stuff is true. But you got to stop this bullshit. Of well, Jerry wasn't funny. Jerry Seinfeld's funny. Jerry Seinfeld is a legendary comic. You can lose that status. Roseanne Barr is a legendary comic who broke so many barriers. All right? You got to realize that. She's a MAGA QAnon nutbag now. So everything in the past is lost. There's other legendary comics out there I've talked about before, but their actions have forever tarnished their legacy. But who they were at that time or what they did still exists. Jerry Seinfeld is he is barrier breaking in a weird way. He's barrier breaking in the fact that he didn't push any boundaries. By the way, Jerry never really pushed a lot of boundaries, I'd say, on stage. His strength was the mundane, the observational humor to a perfected art form. He has his place in comedy. Seinfeld was as big as it was, not because of Jerry, not because of Larry David, but because all of them. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Michael Richards, Jason Alexander, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David, Larry Charles, the entire writing staff. It was a once-in-a-generation show that got the opportunity to succeed after a horrible first season. Jerry wouldn't be able to do that show today because that show would have been canceled after 6 episodes because it wouldn't have made money. It would have probably offended the moral majorities of the world. And 6 episodes, you're done. That's what's changed. Jerry does go on to say some stuff about movies. I don't want to get to it, but like, I just that stuff drives me crazy too. This retroactive, this old man wasn't funny. You don't know that, number one, if you're too young. You don't know that. I saw someone tweet, someone was like, a big fan of Steve Martin. I've never really seen his stand before, but I'm watching this doc. It wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. Steve Martin was selling out stadiums before that was possible for comics. You might not like the humor. It was also simplistic and silly, but it was also working on a higher level. Steve Martin was deconstructing comedy. He says that in the doc. He goes over it. But yeah, an arrow in the head isn't my favorite kind of joke either. But it was absolutely popular. It was absolutely funny. Steve Martin sold out stadiums. He had to quit comedy because he couldn't even do comedy anymore. He had become so popular and so powerful and so influential as a comic. So stop leaving that kind of reason behind when you're trying to take down the old man who's screaming at clouds. Because Jerry's an old man screaming at clouds. And he's wrong about so much stuff. And he's not even wrong. What upsets me more than anything is that Jerry's confused about a lot of stuff. Isn't the PC crowd or the extreme left destroying comedy? It's non-artistic people in artistic positions who are doing this for their stock prices, or doing it for their payouts, or doing it to be safe to not lose their jobs. And you can't find the boundaries being pushed on stage. Michael McCarthy says pushing boundaries is one thing. Having the goal of offending is another. Yeah, to offend is such a weird goal as a comic. To challenge, to push boundaries, I'm a big Andy Kaufman fan. I would say some of his goals, it might seem like he was there to offend, but I think Andy Kaufman, not all of his stuff stands up, I would say, but Andy Kaufman's was to challenge what your expectations are at a show and run head on into that. And trust me, it does not always work. It was a once in a lifetime thing, I think, with him. Jerry finishes with the stuff. He had another interview which he talked about films. He's doing the unfrosted promotional tour for this Netflix movie that begins the end of this week. Film doesn't occupy the pinnacle in the social cultural hierarchy that it did for most of our lives. When a movie came out, if it was good, we all went to see it. We all discussed it. We quoted lines and scenes we liked. Now we're walking through a fire hose of water, just trying to see. This is from a separate interview, so you cannot tie this to his woke PC hot takes here. But what Jerry's saying here is true as well. But he got ripped for this one too, because people just don't like Jerry, and I'm fine with that. People are upset that his wife, he started dating her when she was 17, which, by the way, everyone remembers that. And I don't know why we as a society didn't challenge it more then. I remember when news broke about Jerry's got a new girlfriend, Shoshana Lodenstein. Oh, well, here he is taking her to prom. He's 38. Yeah. What? I remember my mom saying something But it was water off a duck's back. I'm glad that we are now questioning that a little more. Not the age difference, sensitive topic for me, but the time that a 38-year-old highly successful celebrity comedian started dating a high school girl. We should question that. And if we're retroactively questioning it, I understand why. But it is what it is, and she's not 17 anymore. But that aside, I think a lot of people are ready to attack Jerry. But he's not wrong here. This is correct. This is correct. Film doesn't occupy the pinnacle in social cultural hierarchy that it did for most of our lives. It doesn't. We do have a fire hose of water, much like Michael Richards in UHF, if you all know that reference. Fire hose. That's what's going on with content today. I was having this conversation. Jake Yakovetis is member for one. Don't know what milestone chat is, but I follow prompts. Jake, I'm just happy you're here. The milestone is you, Jake. Glad to have you here. I was having this discussion on Anytime. I was trying to get into. I was watching in Boston Saturday Night Live, and I, as you all know, like Saturday Night Live was like that was my thing. Like, I wanted to be on it, like a lot of folks in my age group, and I studied it. I knew the history of it. I still know the history of it up to a point, and I just stopped kind of watching it. And it's easy to just get older, get busy, and not pay attention. Then that kind of turns into, Saturday Night Live isn't as good as it was in my day. That's where the problems. By the way, I'm kind of almost doing a Dana Carvey character. In my day, but I watched it, and I think SNL's got some cultural significance. Always will have some cultural significance. Hell, it's coming up on its 50th season. But I know some of the cast. I know some of the names. I pay attention. I'm old friends. It's been a long time, but old friends with Mikey Day, and he's still on there, and Kenan Thompson and all that stuff. And like, I had this feeling of I just feel so disconnected from the show. And I saw an article that was like SNL doesn't create movie stars anymore. And that's not wrong, but it's not the show's fault. It's not the talent's fault. It's because Saturday Night Live was like the only thing to watch on Saturday nights. We all watched it. That is why so many people in certain generations have shared references to SNL. One of my favorite SNL references, anytime I see Patrick Stewart, I say, salt and pepper. And everyone in my generation knows that reference. Because Salt and Pepper were the musical acts. The night he hosted in February of, I think, 1994. Maybe 1993. No, I think it was 94. And we all, millions of viewers, at the same time, saw Sir Patrick Stewart say, and now our musical guest, Salt and Pepper. And we all laughed as a generation. We don't have that anymore. And Jerry's speaking to that here. But he turns it into such, he lacks the understanding. And I get it. I'm bitter too. Jerry. I cannot stand movie fucking reaction channels. I cannot understand and do not get why people sit in front of other things and react to it. I just did a movie commentary. Movie commentaries is fun. I get that. You're sitting watching a movie together. You're talking about the art. The whole reaction game, I don't get it. And it's turned me into a complete bitter asshole. I don't talk to even some friends I know or people I used to work with because they're doing reaction shit. I'm like, why? Why chase that trend? But they're richer than I. So I can become what Jerry is if I don't pull back from the brink and not analyze the big picture. Not analyze why they're doing that. Number one, survival. Two, that's what's working. Two, that's what people want to see. And that's how we take in art now. We don't take in art like this anymore. So Jerry's not wrong, but this is where we're at. We have to find ways to survive. And that includes how we deliver our jokes. And includes what we're trying to do up on stage, what we're trying to do on screen, and what we're trying to do in this world. There you go. I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say. I mean, it was only a 50 minutes of 20 minutes of coffee today. 50 minutes. I'm back, baby. 20 minutes of coffee is back. I'll make this public after, as always, but I want to thank the channel members that hang out with me. Jake Yakoveta, Brian Tiller's here. Good morning, all. Kingsport Cal. David McKay. Michael McCarcel. Laser Bolt. 8984M. Love having you here. One of the few Force Center crossovers. Actually, you know what's funny? I think some of the only Force Center crossovers are often here in my live stream. Double shot espresso. So speaking of things, as I said, head over to my Patreon page or the Patreon shop to check out the Young Guns movie commentary. It's just me, some whiskey, and the regulators mounting up. Young Guns 2 will be on the way. We appreciate that. Appreciate that for those who've watched. Don't forget, Thursday, 5 p.m., we'll be hanging out live. We're going to have a lot of fun taking questions and calls live for another episode of Blathering Live. And hey, for what it's worth, I'm trying to grow this channel. Even if you're not, do me a favor. Especially if you're listening later on the public release of this. Even if you're not a fan of ASMR, even if you don't get it, would you consider going to Sports Card ASMR and subscribing? Would you consider that? I really, really want to. I enjoy doing this channel. I want to build it out. And I need to get to that 1,000 sub mark. And I can start getting like $7 a month. But I really like doing it. And I'll explain why. I am a fan of ASMR because it does sincerely help me relax. Like I have to, right after this, I have to sit down and I have to do writing all day for this channel I work for. And it's fun. I'm having fun doing it. Blessed to have it. But I get a little antsy. I get a little non-focused, unfocused is the word I guess you would use. And ASMR calms me down. ASMR helps me focus. It helps me go to sleep at night. I don't do drugs. I try not to take melatonin pills anymore. ASMR helps that. So I really am a member of the community, but I have a lot of fun doing the channel. And people who don't know me follow me on the channel. I have about 620 subs now. And I only gain every week. I've been doing it just over a year. I only gain every week. I never lose subs. I only gain. I lose subs on this channel. I lost 5 subs this week. Could be bots. Could be people tired of my bullshit. I don't know. But people who don't know me from Collider, who don't know me from Screen Junkies, who don't know me from Force Center, who don't know me from anything, are subscribed to the channel and saying nice things to me about what I'm doing over there. So I think I'm good at it too. So if you would, Matthew Zuck says, link to the ASMR channel description gives me a 404 error. Well, that's a problem. Why is that? I'll figure that out. There you go. That's why it's failing. That's why people aren't subbing. But anyways, search and find it, Sports Card ASMR, and help me grow. You don't have to watch it. Don't even watch it. Just sub. All right? All right. That's it. You guys are great. Sorry, Jerry. I love you. You're one of the reasons I got into stand-up comedy. The documentary Comedian from 1999 is one of the best things out there on comedy. Be better, Jerry. You're too rich. You won't. Bye.